Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is VIN1719, and this is a 2016, looks like 8X1 ultrasonic blue mica. It's not. It left the factory as paint code 223, which is caviar black with LA20 black interior. So black on black, for sale at a Volkswagen dealer in North Carolina with 45,000 miles for a call for price. And so don't know what that's going to be yet, but we'll dive into what it probably should be. Production statistics, 448 out of the 2,348 cars that I have identified for the US 49 were caviar. Out of those 448, 225 had LA20 black interior. On a rarity scale, that's like a 3 or 4 out of 10. 9.58% of the GSFs for the US 49 were black on black. So pretty common as far as that goes. This isn't gonna be a 1 of 1 or 1 of 8 or something like that. Specific for 2016, 284 out of the 1,417 cars were caviar. And of those 284, 148 had black interior. So 148, 1 of 148 at its rarest. Pretty common as far as that goes. Carfax, Epic VIN, and AutoCheck. So Carfax shows this as a 4-owner, no accident car. Epic VIN shows this as a 4-owner, no accident car. And AutoCheck shows this as a 3-owner, no accident car. And I think the reason AutoCheck says that is because during one of these ownerships, it was held by a Montana LLC, which is probably Carvana, but I don't have any proof of that. So it's a 3 or 4 owner, probably a 3 owner, but on paper it's a 4 owner car with no accidents. You've heard me talk about in other videos that there are less than 1,000 GSFs, and I'll update the number here when I do an end of year review, but there's less than 1,000 GSFs that exist right now here at the end of 2025, December of 2025, that are clean title, no accidents. And so this is one of those cars. Previous sales. So this car first went on sale in April of 2016 for $88,000 in Ohio, and it didn't sell until October of 2016. So about 6 months later, and it looks like after dropping the price to an asking price of $85,000, so it may have sold it for even less than that. March of 2021, $53,000 with 28,000 miles in Ohio, and it looks like it went to a buyer in Florida. It looks like when they traded it in, it went into that Montana corporation, and that was probably Carvana. I'm just speculating there, but Carvana does that. When you see that on Carfaxes, it's just a short-term ownership. Don't know why they registered it, but that's why it's showing 4 owners for some, 3 owners for others. I think it's a 3-owner car. And then it popped up for sale in June of 2024, $2,000 more for $55,000 with 36,000 miles. So another 8,000 miles, but at $2,000 higher price in Indiana. It was still stock there, and it sold in November of 2024 to a buyer in North Carolina. So now it's for sale here, December of 2025. So the owner had it for a little over a year, 45,000 miles, but it's obviously modified now. It has aftermarket wheels, a Tom's lip, carbon fiber steering wheel, carbon fiber hood, rear aero, and of course it is wrapped blue. Now the dealer, this is one of those dealers right now where it just says call for price. I don't know if they're gonna put a price later, but we'll get into that here in a bit. So now onto the photos. It's obviously wrapped, and that to me, in most cases, is a big turnoff because what are they hiding? But it's also, this car has been wrapped around a year or less. And so that's less concerning because I've got previous sale photos when it was for sale in 2024. Obviously looked fine there. I don't think they're hiding anything, but that's again a big turnoff for me just on a personal level. I don't buy wrapped cars. But the photos that are posted right now, hopefully they update them, but the car, it is filthy and it needs a very good detail. The interior photos were like a very dark room, so you couldn't even see very much inside. So I took the liberty of, in Photoshop, kind of brightening up the photo so I could see a little bit better. And I don't really see anything wrong with the carbon fiber trim or anything like that. I don't see any excessive wear. It just needs a very good detail. Other than that, I don't see really any red flags going on as far as the interior goes. The exterior, it's the wrap, and not my choice of wheels either, but it has Tom's Aero. There's some Elvin carbon fiber wheel. It's got some tasteful mods, and they're not inexpensive. So there's a butt for every seat, but you know, on a personal preference, you know, it's not kind of my thing, but again, that's not why I'm here. Really, I hope the dealer ends up posting better photos because they're really poor right now, and that will eliminate a lot of the questions I have as far as the exterior and interior goes. And so if you're gonna go inspect this car, look at it very thoroughly, do the obvious of looking at the carbon fiber trim, checking out the driver's seat bolster, just the wear spots, the touch points, the door panels, things like that. And you know, just satisfy yourself that you're happy with the condition of it. So now on to the price. I obviously have to approach this as if this car was stock because that's how a lot of these values are computed. And so if this car with 44,000 miles on it, if it was completely stock in 4-owner, no accident condition, it'd probably be in like the lower 50s. And the range with that mileage should probably be somewhere around $50,000 to $55,000. And you can see in the graphs here kind of where this car should be. So if this car finally has a price posted, I would expect to see it at this dealer probably around $54,995, you know, $55,000. That's probably what I would expect. Now, if I see it for sale for $60,000, you're out of your mind. If it's anything less than 55, it's probably a pretty good deal. So there's plenty of evidence to support that price. The mods, to some people, add a little bit of value. To others, they don't. To me, it doesn't really add any value, or you know, very minimal. And so that's just, it's a buyer preference at that point. So now into the service history. It looks like it's pretty well dealer serviced with a little bit of service outside of it for like tires and alignments, things like that. The first entry of note is October of 2016. The interior door panel had a repair, and it doesn't say what panels or panel and what was done, but there's just some sort of repair. It could be a scratch on the leather or something like that. March of 2017, the blower motor was making noise, and they removed a bunch of leaves in it. Maybe it parks under a tree or something at work or at home. But I do see a few of those complaints in the service histories on other cars, and it's usually like a whining noise. A month later, April of 2017, they noted that they have a gravel driveway and to inspect the underside for damage. And so I don't know if maybe there was some damage from the snow or something like that. You remember this car did live in a rust belt environment for the first few years anyway. October of 2017, another complaint about the blower motor making noise, and they couldn't replicate it, didn't do anything, and they had a complaint about the oil being overfilled, so they went to go check it, and it was actually underfilled, so it was low by about a quart, so they added oil. November of 2017, another noise about the blower motor, and 2 weeks later, in November 17, they replaced the blower motor, and that looks like that resolved that issue. Well, I say that, but then December of 2018, there's more leaves in the cabin filter or the blower motor making noise, and so they removed them. So it sounds like it's probably an outside issue here where parking under a tree and they're getting sucked in and creating this issue. April of 2017, the JLB recall was done. That's the high pressure fuel pumps. So most of these cars have that done. August of 2020, the low pressure fuel pump was reprogrammed. Very common issue on these cars. It's already sorted, well and good to go. October of 2020, several electrical issues were reported and a note of light damage to the rear. Blind spot monitor, sunroof, tire pressure monitoring, the power windows, none of them were working. And the tech found that there was an internal wiring defect. And so he removed a bunch of stuff, repaired it, and put it back. And it seems like that corrected the issue. But the big takeaway from that is noted light rear damage. And I don't know, the way it was worded, it says light damage. I don't know if it's damage to the lights or damage to the bumper, and it kind of sounds like that's what it is, but light damage to the rear bumper because it's affecting the blind spot monitoring, which the sensors are on the rear bumper, and if you tap or back into something, it will screw that system up and it has to get recalibrated. So that's probably what went on here, but obviously some other wiring damage too. March of 2021, at 28,000 miles certified pre-owned prep. So that aligns with what we saw when the car was for sale for $53,000. 2 months later, in May of 2021, states that they had an oil leak, but the tech found nothing. And also at 32,000 miles, the front brakes were redone. So new pads and resurfaced the front rotors. So this car has about 13,000 miles on the front brakes. I don't see anything about the rear, so obviously that's something I would look at. Look at the rear brakes and see if those need attention. And then there's a gap from about 2021 to 2025. but it's only like 7,000 miles. So it's not a lot of mileage. It wasn't driven a lot in the last 4 years, but then February of 2025 at 40,000 miles stated that the owner did a transmission drain and fill, but they were not sure about the correct fluid level. So they checked it and the tech found that it was overfilled by a quart. Pretty common. Not, if you do a drain and fill and you don't check it with the overflow at the perfect temperature, which you have to have a computer plugged in, then you can easily underfill or overfill the transmission. So good to see that they actually did the right thing, took it to the dealer, and they corrected it. October of 2025, 43,000 miles, which is the last service at the Lexus dealer, found excessive wind noise coming from the left front. And I do see that on a few of the other service histories. And they noted that the parts are on back order. It is the left front window seal causing the noise. And they said, we'll bring vehicle in when parts arrive. That's just like a month and a half ago. That was the last service, so it hasn't been back since then, or they installed it and didn't report it. So on the Carfax, there's two other entries. In May of 2025, 41,000 miles. It looks like maybe new tires. Tires were mounted, tires were balanced, but it doesn't say how many. Could just have been one. Just something I would look at is the tires on the car as well. And in July of 2025, an alignment. So what's not done? Obviously, the big one here is the valley plate. I would do a pre-purchase inspection on this car, have a scope put underneath the intake manifold right above the oil cap, and you can look down and you can see if it has any pink crusty coolant. That is signs that the valley plate is leaking. And if you do it at the dealer, again, I've just had a quote done for my blue GSF. It was almost $2,400 at the dealer in Dallas-Fort Worth area to have that done. My independent mechanic, Toyota MasterTech, did it on that one for about $1,200 about 2 years ago. So that is something you need to put money aside. If it's not currently leaking, it will be soon. It is time and heat cycles. It is not necessarily mileage. So this car, if it hasn't been done, expect to do the valley plate. The carbon fiber trim, although it looks original, none of it's been replaced at the dealer. So if it has been replaced outside of that, or it's otherwise still original. So if you're gonna take it to, a colder climate, but it's been in Florida and North Carolina the last 4 or 5 years, but prior to that it was in a cold climate, and if it would have delaminated, it may have done it early on. I don't know, but it's one of those things that I would expect to probably have to do carbon fiber trim replacement in the future if you're going to bring it to a cold climate. I don't see anything about the front lower control arm bushings being done, so inspect the insides of the front tires. Make sure you don't see any excessive wear. If you do, bushings, 2 tires, and an alignment. This car has still not had the ZLZ done, which is the customer service campaign that covers the sticky, deformed, or cracking dash. It's covered for 10 years from the in-service date. So the in-service date on this car was September 30th of 2016. So you are covered until September 30th of 2026. So you have about 9 more months left of coverage, and Lexus will replace your dash free of charge if it's even the slightest bit sticky. My service guy at the Lexus dealer had showed me this too. He's like, just stick your fingers on the dash for a couple seconds and then compare that against the door panels. They should be the same texture, the same feel. If the dash is slightly sticky, Lexus will cover the replacement. So that is something that has not been done on this car, that it's still covered unlimited amount of miles for 10 years. HVAC servo sweep, that has not been done on this car. So if you're going to go drive this car, make sure it's fully up to temperature. Set one side to max hot, one side to max cold, cycle through everything, and then switch sides, make sure everything responds. If it doesn't, servo sweep will sometimes fix that. If not, sometimes the servos have to be replaced, and that on a few of them, it requires the dash removal. So if you're going to do the ZLZ, that would be a good time to pay to go ahead and have those servos replaced if they are giving this car any issues. But I think overall, it looks like the transmission's recently been serviced. Recent front brakes, it may need rear brakes. The transmission's been serviced. It's been well taken care of at the dealer otherwise, and it may have new tires too. So from a service perspective, it's probably pretty well ready to go, other than maybe getting the valley plate inspected. So finally, would I buy this? I think on a personal level, no. because I don't, as I said before, I don't buy wrapped cars. I personally think that like 9 out of 10 times they're hiding something. That may not be the case with this car because it is such a recent wrap, and we do have recent photos from less than a year ago, or from a little over a year ago, and it didn't look like it had any major defects or anything there. Again, on a personal level, the wheels are not my taste. The rest of the mods are all right, but I think that at the end of the day, it is a 4-owner, low mileage, clean title, no accident car. So it has that going for it. And I would just satisfy yourself that they're not hiding anything. And the other thing too is the first 4 or 5 years of life of this car were spent in the north, in Indiana, Ohio, in that area. So just if it is winter driven, make sure it's not excessively rusty underneath. So get some good photos underneath, or if you're doing a pre-purchase inspection, you should be looking at that anyway. I think if I were in the market, if this car was cheap enough where I could look past some of the wrap and things like that, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with maybe like the upper 40s or something like that, where you can pay to remove the wrap, but then hopefully there's no other damage underneath. So I think there will be a buyer for this car, and it has the potential to be a good one. It just needs a little bit further inspection to satisfy yourselves that it is good. But yeah, that's what I've got for you guys. VIN 1719. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon.